Hey everyone, and welcome to another conversation with Chest Leadership. I'm joined by past presidents Stephanie Levine and Steve Simpson. As always, we're going to try to get a little bit to the heart of the matter on topics of interest to membership about leadership. And Steph, I want to start with you. Thanks again, both of you, for joining us today. Minute, as best as you can, I know you've done a ton of stuff. Give us a little information about you and your pathway to leadership through Chest.
Okay, so I'm Stephanie Levine. I'm the immediate past president of Chest. I am based in San Antonio, where I'm a professor of medicine in the Division of Pulmonary and Critical Care. I'm also at the Audie Murphy VA Hospital in South Texas. And I've been involved with Chest for almost 30 years. I first started out in the networks, and then I was the inaugural chair, actually, when we started the whole network model of the transplant network, was eventually the head of the steering committee, chair of the Council of Networks. Then I was involved in SEEK, pulmonary and critical care, since volume 6, in fact, pretty much straight through except for one year there. And chair of the board review course. I was the president of the Chest Foundation, and then on the board of regents. And what else there? Oh, chair of education committee as well, and then head of the co-chair of the annual meeting with Darcy Marciniak in Montreal.
Following Stephanie is always hard. I mean, she's done everything.
Yes.
So a little bit about yourself, Steve.
Yeah. This makes my CV much shorter and faster to say. No, I'm Steve Simpson. I am a professor in pulmonary and critical care at the University of Kansas, where I've been for about 23 years. I got my start with Chest. My very first start with Chest was an abstract that I sent in about 1988 to a Chest meeting in Atlanta. But my mentor at that time, one of my mentors, was Roger Bone, who is the progenitor of the initial sepsis criteria, and that's why you younger folks may have heard of him. But Roger kind of pulled me into Chest and was my sponsor, so to speak. I think he was working behind the scenes to help me get opportunities, which I took advantage of. The first actually official thing I did in Chest was be a member of the scientific program committee in the mid-90s. But then after Roger passed on, I had to make my own way, so to speak, and so I tried getting onto the networks. The first thing that happened was I became governor for the state of Kansas. That we don't have governors anymore.
Not technically governor of Kansas.
No, not governor of Kansas.
Governor for Kansas for Chest.
Yeah, governor, yes, indeed. But then I applied to the networks, and I had to apply 3 times to get onto the Critical Care Network Steering Committee. I'm not sure if they believed what I was telling them, that I was interested in critical care in rural areas of the country. But ultimately I got on, became network chair, then chair of the Council of Networks, and then an at-large board member, and then I made my way to being president.
So we're going to circle back. Both of you, again, have served in the role of president. Certainly, I think there's interest from the membership on exactly what that entails, because they see us, once a year at the meeting. They get emails from us now and then, but there's a lot to it. Some of it fun, some of it stressful and a little less fun. So I want to circle back to that. What I'd like to do is start a little bit, though, on what each of you brings to the table that's very different and that I think the membership could benefit from. While we do that, of course, we have this wooden tower between us. Steve, I know each time you hit the table, the tower jiggles a bit, so just be cognizant of that as we go. You've both been briefed on the rules. What I'd like to do is ask questions, but as one person is responding to the question, the other person can take their turn and so on. So I'm going to ask Dr. Levine the first question, which means, Steve, you're going to take the first crack at the board. You mentioned the foundation. There's this perception, which I certainly had for many years, that the foundation is just sort of a place you give money to. It's a charity, but there's a lot more to it than that. And some of it is actually directly germane to our junior members. Can you speak a little bit to maybe a little bit better understanding of what it is and how our junior members might benefit from more involvement with it?
Yeah, I think there's lots of opportunities with the foundation. So there are multiple work groups, including one that focuses on patient education, and they're always open to having junior members in those groups. There are grants, clinical grants that you can apply for, and that was one of my early starts with the Chest Foundation. And there are community service projects as well. So it's a great introductory place to start in the organization and to work with the foundation.
You mentioned the grants, which I think get a little bit of press, but maybe not as much as they should. Give me a sense, if you can, compare an NIH grant application to a CHEST, because grant applications can sound a little scary. How involved is that process?
Well, it is a formal grant process, but it's not at the detail that you would need for an NIH grant. So it's a great starting grant. Fellows can apply for it. For many of them, they're eligible. Junior faculty. There's some that are for diversity scholars. So there's really a lot of good options there.
And one more piece. You mentioned the patient education piece. Can you give us some examples of things that CHEST Foundation is actively doing that our younger membership might be interested in participating in?
Oh, there's COPD. A lot came out this past couple of years with COVID. So really the general pulmonary topics that you would think that there's opportunities to participate in those writing groups for those.
I often, again, I've learned as I've gotten older, and it took me way longer to learn this than it should have, is we're a very education-focused organization. The college tend to focus on professional education for all of the different career pathways, but there's a ton of patient education material we do. Some of it was work with the ALA, for example, but the CHEST Foundation has really been the part of CHEST that focuses on patient-facing stuff, and it doesn't get enough press. I think it's a great way to get involved.
I totally agree, and again, a great place to start.
I'm going to let you take a turn now. So I'm going to turn to Steve. You and I have known each other a few years. We've worked closely for a few years, but we're very different in many ways. And one of those ways is you have a lot more street cred in the research space than I do. We can talk about my failures, but talk to me, because people see CHEST as the clinical PCCM organization in the country. How does a guy with pretty good research cred like yourself fit into CHEST, and why CHEST as opposed to anywhere else to show your skill set and to be a leader?
Yeah. Well, my very first experience with CHEST, you've heard before, but my first experience was in Atlanta. Before you were in Atlanta, I have to say.
You're calling me young again. That wasn't before I was born. Let's be clear. It was not before I was born.
It was not that. No, but it was in Atlanta, and I went to this poster discussion session. I put up my poster, and I was scared as could be. It's my first experience. My mentor couldn't come to the meeting. I'm by myself. And the guy leading this meeting, his name is Bart Chernow. Everyone knows Bart Chernow. I've been reading. He was at the time the editor of the journal Critical Care Medicine, and so I was quaking in my boots. He came over to my poster and he let me give my spiel, and he said, "That's really great work." And he took a beat and he said, "Would you like to know how to make it even better?" And for me, that is something that I'm constantly striving to do, to be even better in my research work, in my personal life, and in everything. I want to be constantly getting better. So that told me something. And I made the mistake of going to another organization's meeting with one of my fellows a couple of years later when I was the mentor, and she totally got castigated by the person looking at the posters. And I was appalled. I was just appalled. So one thing I have to say about the research experience at CHEST first is that the people involved in it are more human and empathetic than any place else that I've been. They can be critical, but they are humanly critical when they do that. We like that at CHEST. It's how I like to be when I'm reviewing a grant, reviewing a paper, looking at a poster with someone. I'm taking too long
That's
in this
okay.
question.
No,
but
it's a good... So again, I think that we tend to have a bias of it's where we go as clinicians.
yes.
But I think that as our move is more towards diversity, we talk about diversity a lot. And I think diversity means we tend to think of it as bringing folks who are traditionally underrepresented in medicine to have a bigger seat at the table, and it should.
Yes.
But one of the things that have seen us focus on over the last couple of years, and I think is to try to get more diversity of thought.
Yes.
To bring people with very different backgrounds, to bring more research, to bring more private practice docs into the leadership ranks, because I just think all organizations are stronger when there are people with very different backgrounds at the table contributing thoughts together.
Yes, we do think that.
So if I were, again, a junior researcher, I'm gonna ask one more quick question, then I want to go back to Stephanie, because you need to take a turn. We're going to be here forever.
Yes, I do.
If I'm a junior researcher, what's the pull at Chest? What do I do to, convince me as somebody who's really interested in getting a K level or something? Why should I get involved in Chest as opposed to anywhere else?
Right. Well, there are a couple of reasons. One is that Chest funds many people who do go on to win K Awards, and Chest often provides the very first grant that they get. Again, Chest is a friendly place to present your work and get a good critique without feeling beaten down by it. But there are plenty of good mentors. All the people whose papers you read in the various different journals, they are here too. They're here too, and why they still come here is because of the humanness and the sense of community.
All right, thank you. So I want to spin a little bit to something you both have in common, and that is this cabal known as the Board of Regents. I think one of the things that we struggle with a little bit is transparency. And I don't think it's intentional opacity, but I think there's a lot of a misconception, but there's a failure to understand exactly what the role of the board is, who's on it, how big it is. So, Staff, you've been on the board for a couple of years. You preceded both Steve and myself on the board. You were, I think, a member even prior to, as a foundation president, I think you had a seat at the table of the board as well. What is the Board of Regents and what does it do exactly?
So the Board of Regents is really responsible for overseeing the organization. So it's comprised of regents at large, and then there are some positions on the board that are by office. For example, if you're chair of the Council of Networks, you would sit on the Board of Regents. If you're chair of the Council of the International Regents, you would sit on the board. In addition, of course, the 4P group, and that consists of the past president, myself this year, president, and then incoming president, then the person who would be after you, the president designate. So we work closely. We work with the senior staff. We, of course, work with our CEO, Bob Masacchio, but we really try to oversee the organization.
What kinds of decisions, again, I know there are certain things that we may not want to talk about just because it's a little in the weeds, but what kinds of decisions, I'm going to go to Steve so Stephanie can take a turn, come to the board? We meet in person about 3 times a year, maybe remotely 1 or 2 more times a year. What comes up at those meetings?
What comes up at those meetings? Well, the function of a board is to form the strategy for the organization. So what do we talk about? Do we talk about specific things about membership and how a committee should do its business? No, we don't. We're looking out at the future. We're looking for what do we need to do to remain viable and be interesting to the people who are in pulmonary critical care, sleep, and that's how we spend our time in the main. The board, though, like any board, is also responsible for the finances of the organization. So we don't spend the money, but we keep a careful eye on the finances, be sure that this beautiful building we're in, that we can continue to pay for it, and so that we can continue to provide things for our members that they need.
Overwhelmingly, people who are on the board have contributed to one of the committees that reports to the board. And I think that if I miss one, let me know. So it's Education Committee, Membership Committee, Training and Transitions Committee, Guidelines Oversight Committee. Now there's the Health Policy and Advocacy Committee. These committees report to they sort of do the work. I mean, I think you nicely pointed out, the board sort of oversees this, but it's these committees that actually do the work and report to the board. And one of the challenges sometimes we have is avoiding sort of managing the work too closely. We want big picture, broad stroke stuff. Again, what do you think are the hardest decisions the board has to make? What are the challenging things that we deal with?
Well, I think it goes back to what Steve said about strategy. So part of creating strategy is sort of guessing or making an educational guess of where we're going to be sitting as professionals in the future, in 2 years to 5 years down the line. And some of that has to be thought about when we're making these strategic decisions. So I think that's probably the hardest. You missed a few there, Shai.
Tell me.
You missed professional standards.
For PSC, Professional Standards Committee, yep.
How about the Council of Networks?
Council of
maybe?
Networks.
And you missed the scientific program committee.
I'm happy. Look, again, it's wonderful. There's so many opportunities for folks to get involved. I had not done the preparation of listing them all, but all of these are ways that people can eventually get on the board. It's really through any of these entrees. I think it's unusual for somebody to get on the board without participation in one of those subcommittees in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah,
and I think that depending on somebody's interest, they can start in any of those places and then move up. And hopefully through this series of interviews, we're going to talk about each of those things. Let me spin a little bit to the president role. So I have learned a lot about what it entails. Clearly, I'm about to engage on what that year is. I'm going to give you an opportunity to reflect a little bit on what your year has been like. Both of you have had different years probably than many presidents in the context of the pandemic. Talk to me a little bit about what you thought the role was going to be like, and then how it compared to what the role actually was. And I'll start with Steve, since it's Stephanie's turn at the Jenga board. Now, Steve, I will warn you, he just lodged a piece, but there's a piece over here that almost came with it and might be easy to
I
move.
missed it, though. I didn't see
so
it.
it's hard when you're answering a question to pay attention to the game board.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. What was the question?
Yes, see, distraction. So what did you expect the year to be like? Why did you run for president? I mean, the board makes decisions. What's the role of the president versus the board? Why did you run? And then was the position what you thought it was going to be?
Yeah. Well, why did I run? I felt like I had some specific...
He's going to say it, cheated again.
I felt like I had certain specific talents and interests that the board could benefit from. Some of those are, quite frankly, they are my empathy and my ability to listen and gather a variety of opinions. What I wanted, though, when I ran for the board, as you know, I was very interested in broadening out our appeal to such people as advanced practice providers, to people internationally. And what I really looked forward to as president was to be able to travel internationally and meet these folks face to face, shake their hand, or some people don't shake hands, and that's okay. But to meet people where they are and convince them, or at least talk to them about the advantages of CHEST membership and why we should be allies to bring education and research around the world. That's the stuff I had hoped to do. Now, as you are aware, I didn't even get to come to the headquarters for my inauguration because I lived in a COVID red state at the time, so I couldn't leave. I'm now at the headquarters, but we didn't get to have an in-person meeting. I didn't get to be on the stage, and Stephanie at least got that once.
I did.
That's
have that
good. But I didn't get to do that. I did not get to travel internationally. I didn't get to spread the word. And that's how it's a little different. But, you know, I was just musing earlier today that it's really kind of strange because my history with the hantavirus pulmonary syndrome, my history with us being an Ebola intake center at Kansas, my history of interest in pandemic responses. A lot of the things I've done for the state of Kansas involved that work. And my interest, well, just COVID fell into my lap.
Well, it fell into both of your laps, and so I want to give Stephanie a chance. So I want to come back to this. So let's start initially, though, with that same question to you. So as Steve takes a turn here, why did you run for president? What were you hoping to get out of the role?
So I came in as an educator from many of those activities that I told you I've been involved with, and also as a program director. So I think my goal was to focus on the education that CHEST can provide, whether it be, you know, nationally or internationally. I think that was a lot of my goal with the presidency. Again, like Steve mentioned, it started out, you know, as expected, and then, you know, March of 20, that when the pandemic really took off, that's when everything pretty much shut down. But I will look back at that whole experience as an incredible challenge and a learning experience. We pivoted to virtual pretty quickly, both with meetings, with our board meetings, and we were able to, I think, you know, see things forward.
I want to throw this to both of you because, again, I think you were both weirdly, it sounds alliterative, pandemic presidents. I mean, yes, it's happened part of the way through the year. You certainly had it for the entirety of the year. Hopefully we're on our way out now as the end of your term comes up. What is the role, what did you foresee the role of CHEST would be, the role of the president would be during a pandemic, during that transition, and how well did we fulfill that role? So I guess I'll start with Steve because it's Stephanie's turn, but I'd really be curious on your input, both of your input on this topic, because it's been a tough couple of years for everybody out in the world.
Yeah, so I thought that CHEST would become one of the educational leaders during the course of this, and I think that we did a good job of that. I hoped that CHEST would, and some CHEST members would, step up with some research about the virus and about the pandemic, and some people did, and some people have. I was very proud of CHEST for stepping up and saying, hey, let's not panic and lose our head. Doing something for a patient is not necessarily better than doing the standard things that you know. So we did a good job of that.
Stephanie, I mean, you transitioned us into this role. It was started during your term. What's your take on our early response in terms of helping our membership and disseminating some of the education information that Steve was talking about?
Well, I think thanks to an idea that really originated from Steve right at the beginning of the pandemic, we created the COVID task force, which has gone on now for 18 months and has provided tremendous amounts of education. Almost at least initially, we had a weekly webinar on a COVID topic, and that's been ongoing. Lots of social media material and other educational material. So I think that really was an opportunity.
I think, so what have you learned from this? So you're both now going to be sort of moving into the past, you're a past president, you'll be moving into the past president role shortly. What skills, what experiences did you have from your year as president that you'll take away and you'll sort of cherish, but you'll use for your own personal satisfaction moving forward? Steve?
Oh, you know what I learned? You don't know this yet, maybe, but CHEST provides the president with an executive coach who helped me to learn how to set better goals with achievable, measurable key outcomes from those goals.
Are you suggesting that I need a personal? She was holding off on me because I don't want to go.
It's going down.
I'm not going to take any offense that you think I need.
So
you're right.
That's one thing. But another thing that I learned on a personal level that has been fantastic for me is that I had been on the road a lot. You know, I work half-time for the federal government, and I work a lot of my time for CHEST. Had been on the road a lot, and I've been home with my wife now for 18 months. And we have become even closer than we were before.
That's nice.
We are, what COVID has done, oh my God, you're not doing that to me. What COVID has done, it has enhanced something I think that was always probably in me, but I'm able to look at some of the direst circumstances now and find either the silver lining or find what's good about what's going on now and focus on that instead of what's so bad.
What's the experience or the benefit that you've gotten from your year of tenure as CHEST president that will stick with you, that helped you the most in terms of personal or professional development?
Oh, I think working with people, with different people. I think thinking quickly. We had to act quickly, especially when COVID started. I think, I could definitely think about something and think. And, I had to make sometimes quick, but hopefully good decisions. And I think that's what I learned.
Well, again, I can speak from observing both of you, and I said this during my sort of incoming speech, but it really lessons in leadership, both of you. I can't imagine. Hopefully, again, we're nearing the end. I'm sure we'll have some steady state virus moving forward, but hopefully the experience we've had over the last couple of years will not be replicated moving forward. But it has been an extraordinary pleasure watching both of you serve in the leadership position during this incredibly difficult time. And if I can do a job half as well as either of you, then I will be pleased with my role. All right. So thank you for that. We're going to move into a speed round now because we haven't had anybody lose yet. So I'm going to ask questions that are not medical, a little bit more personal, short answers, but as the person answers, the other person has to go. So I think the last turn, I think you took, Steve, so it's going to be your turn, but you're going to get the question.
Okay.
Here's the question. And you can
And
use.
I'm going?
Yeah, it's gonna be your turn.
Okay.
What word or phrase, and it could have been a word or phrase used by a prior president if you want, although you have to be careful because they may be watching, pushes your buttons. You're like, people shouldn't say that. That really bothers me when
my
somebody
gosh.
uses that word or phrase. What is, Dr. Simpson, what is that word or phrase for you?
Gosh, you've
could be
caught
one
me.
that I use.
No, you've caught me flat-footed. The problem is when I'm rounding in the ICU, I can name in one set of rounds. I will tell people, don't say that. That's
what is
not.
it?
Well, actually, no. Here's one. Here's one. That begs the question.
Yes.
That begs the question of something, something, something. That's not what that means. To beg the question means to answer with a non sequitur, basically, to redirect the
People
question.
misuse it all the time. And
Yes.
when I misuse it, I say, I know I'm using this incorrectly, but it's what everyone thinks it means. All right, so Stephanie, it's Steve's turn. What is a word or phrase that when somebody says it, it's like a nails on a chalkboard? You wish nobody would ever say that.
Albeit.
Albeit, like
Albeit.
ALB. That's just a word. What's the
Albeit,
problem?
really?
Now teach me, because I've probably misused that.
And with statistically significant, albeit minimal.
Oh, I got it.
Or the results were this, albeit small.
Albeit small.
The game continues. All right. So the question now will go to Steve with Stephanie's turn.
Mm-hmm.
What movie, if you're flipping around the TV channels, but you catch this movie, and you're like, I love this movie. I've seen it 10 times, but I'm going to sit and watch it for 15 minutes.
yes,
What
yes.
is that movie for you? Your turn, Stephanie.
To do this.
Oh yes.
The Matrix.
Really?
Oh, heck yes.
You know they're releasing another one coming up
Yes,
soon.
they are. I'm looking forward to it.
So that movie on TV, you will always stop and watch it for a little bit.
I'm like a moth to the flame for
Really?
the Matrix.
Now, how about
the
the
original
sequels?
movie?
Okay, now the sequels, not so
necessarily
much.
The sequels, but the
Okay.
original.
I'm glad to have known that because that's not what I would have. I've worked with you a long time. That conversation has never come up. I didn't know you. Are you sort of a sci-fi geek at heart?
Yeah, I used to read a lot of sci-fi, Isaac Asimov and Robert Heinlein when I was a kid.
All right. Well, now
Bohemian Rhapsody for me.
the one just from a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Rami Malek won a Best Actor.
Absolutely, no question.
wow.
Just saw it the other day again.
But so that is to say I think I've only seen that once because
Yeah.
they may have made it on HBO or something, but I don't think I've seen that in repeats yet. All right, still your turn. We're letting you.
I know.
I like how you're not delaying. You're really testing every
I am
single
testing.
beam and the grid to sort of see what works
There's
for
a
you.
no-go.
All right, we're going to keep going until someone loses. All right, next question. Why is that funny?
I love it.
What is the coolest place you've traveled, and why is it the coolest place you've traveled? And I know you've traveled a lot. You're a
have
pretty
traveled
worldly
a
guy.
lot. Yeah. The coolest, huh?
You have to pick one. Make it pick one.
Tierra del Fuego.
And so
And why? Absolutely the most beautiful place in the world. Absolutely. Well, I guess if you like tropical isles, maybe not, but mountains, plains, animals that are foreign to me, wonderful climates.
one of those will probably go.
Usually.
maybe not.
Not today.
Nope.
I've never been. It's
and
on,
that's
so that
why
should be
I
on
like-
everyone's bucket list.
Oh, heck yes. Yeah.
All right, what's the best place you've ever been and why?
It was at Chester when we went to the APSR to Vietnam.
Really?
Yeah.
Why that?
Interesting, historic, really foreign. I mean, really different.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to start calling the clock on y'all. So I'm going to give you now 15 seconds per move. It is still your. You're like, I hope you
I
think
know,
I
I wish
move,
the
but you're going to have
question
to.
would
I'm calling
end.
the clock. The clock is there. You have 15 seconds. You got to be the call.
I've
she
got
found
it, got it.
one.
Oh my God.
Steve is so bummed that you found
Oh,
one.
I am so bummed. Yes.
All right, last
No, if
question,
I
because I
can-
think this will be. You have 15 seconds.
I
We'll
think
start with
Stephanie
Stephanie.
cheats,
No, she didn't
No.
cheat. I saw
Not
her.
this time.
No, she's done well. What song comes on the radio? And if you're on your own, you're always going to sing along. And if you're in public, you wish you were alone so you could sing along. I'm going to start with Stephanie because it's Steve's turn.
yeah.
What's that song? It's just an earworm for you. It's always going to go. 15 seconds.
That's a hard one because
It doesn't have to be one, but what's a song for which that is true?
it has. I mean, I guess because I've been
I'm not
watching
gonna make you sing it.
this Bohemian Rhapsody
Oh,
so much.
sing
It's got to be a Queen song.
That's fine. Which one?
Probably the main one. Probably Bohemian Rhapsody.
Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah.
You don't get, now that was made famous again by Wayne's World a few years ago. It had gone dormant. It never hit as big, I think, as it did during Wayne's World. Steve, what is the song that, as the kids say these days, slaps for you and will always be in your head when you hear it. Now, you can't touch the rest of the tower.
Oh, is that right?
Yes, I'm watching
Yeah, you call me out.
I am the official referee. What is that song?
Something Led Zeppelin.
Something Led Zeppelin.
Not sure which one.
Oh my God.
Oh, baby.
Can't believe you did that.
That's crazy. All right, Stephanie.
It's my wife.
That's good.
It's
Well-
this song.
You're a good husband. All right. We have to keep going.
Yeah. I'm sorry. There are
That's
about
okay.
half a dozen Led Zeppelin songs, and not a single one will come to my brain.
The fact that both of you have
Stairway to Heaven.
No, not Stairway to Heaven.
Neither of
Yeah,
you's played this game before, and you have done meritorious. So I've played this game against multiple prior interviews, and I reliably have lost well before this.
Did we
And you
go
all-
the farthest?
How have you?
yes.
How have you lost? You're not even playing.
No. Well, in this particular instance, I'm not playing, but in general, look at that. Oh, see, she got smart. She went very tall.
Ooh.
Can't now. Don't touch the rest of the tower.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
almost there. Just pull it out. You have to take it now. It's almost there. You got to take it. Keep going. Got to hope. Got to keep going. Keep going. This interview may go forever. Steve, you're up. At some point, it's gonna drop.
It's gonna drop.
It's gonna drop.
got to drop. There is no question. So question.
Now they're just-
Oh.
We're going to keep recording. Now, I've asked these presidents some wonderful questions. They've been incredibly generous and kind with their time so far. Thank you both for coming. We're going to keep playing. We're going to keep recording. I don't know if they're going to show it or not. I hope they will, because I'm seeing how long this game is going to go. Dr. Levine, you're up.
Oh my.
We've got like a crowd of 30 people now watching. I know you can't see this on camera, but there's this gathering trying to figure out which president is going to lose. There's like a betting parlor over here. People handing out tickets. It's quite impressive.
Wow.
They're odds makers. I think there's a board up in Vegas.
Well, that's obviously a no-go.
You all are going to just dream about this. Now, whoever loses is going to feel really bad about this, having made it so far.
Oh, I would never feel bad about losing to Stephanie.
That's
This
a
is
good
pretty.
point.
We made it pretty
You've
far.
done fantastically well, and yet there still has to be a loser. No, not with that legally. Can't stabilize the
look at her.
tower.
She's gonna get it. She's gonna get it.
I don't know. I don't think the
it's
chess
so-
staff have
it's
ever
so
seen
teetering right
what a good
there.
president helping his colleague. I would hope that I would help you if you were in this
You would. Well, I don't know. You got a
We're
little bit of a
collaborative.
competitive.
We
streak
actually
there.
are. One of the wonderful things is, as Dr. Levine mentioned, is that the presidents are in a group of four. It's always the past president, current president, president-elect, president-designate, and the four of us have calls every couple of weeks. And what I think has been the best part of it is, again, everyone's got a slightly different style. That is brazen. Everyone's got a slightly different style, but we all tend to solve problems in slightly different ways just because of our world experiences. There's no way this is going to go. And I have learned a ton from the other folks with whom I've had a chance to work in my role as I'm not exactly sure what you're doing, but this can't work.
No.
The laws of physics suggest this is not going to work.
If it works, there you go.
All right. Thank you for joining us.
That was fantastic.
Champion.
Thank you.
Steve Simpson.
Thank you, sir.
Second place, Stephanie Levine. Thank you both for joining us. Have a great rest of your day.
Cool.
Look,
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Thank
I've
you.
never seen them. Did you see that? Both movies, and they built the tower like this.